Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva. Hare Krishna. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, Srila Gurudev. All glories to the most amazing Sri Sri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Snan Yatra Ki. Thank you very much for joining us today, Prabhus and Matajis. And we're very happy that you have been able to join us. Please, Hare Krishna. So I'm going to speak today on the most glorious pastime of how the Lord Jagannath descended into this world. And I hope that we'll spend the next hour or so discussing this very wonderful pastime of Indradyumna Maharaj. Om Ajnanatimmirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Just one point. I think I have some technical problem because I hear myself being repeated again, and that's why I stopped myself for a while. Vishal Prabhu, if you're on it, can you help me there? And I hear a lot of feedback behind, as if there's someone who has something on, or it's not muted. But I am hearing myself over and over again, so I can't speak. I can start. Sorry for that, Prabhu's Matajis. So welcome again. Let us now focus our time and effort in the next 45 minutes to speak on the glories of Lord Jagannath. These beautiful pastimes of the Lord, they not only give us so much of pleasure because Krishna is transcendental and Krishna has that wonderful aspect of Ladini Sakti. Ladini Sakti means the pleasure-giving potency of the Lord. And Krishna is so kind that whenever we are in contact with him, somehow or another, by hearing about Krishna, by talking about Krishna, by preparing to receive Krishna, you'll find that actually we all become very blissful. This is because Krishna is the only person in this entire three worlds and beyond who has the ability to give you bliss. Because no one else has that ability to do so. The only ones who can actually make you happy are those who are connected to Krishna, the pure devotees of the Lord. So between the pure devotees of the Lord and Krishna, they are the ones who will really make us happy. Today, we want to talk about how Lord Jagannath descended into this world. And in order for us to talk about the Lord in that way, we want to understand a few important points. The first point, actually, of Lord Jagannath's pastime is that Lord Jagannath established himself in this world to tell us one very important point, and that is he is not stone, he is not a statue, he is not some wooden piece of doll that everyone looks at and thinks, this is very nice. No. It is by his supreme potency that the Lord actually agrees to come into this world. Therefore, we must be very careful to understand that Lord Jagannath and his form in this world, they are actually very powerful. They are real. They actually exist. And therefore, we have to be very sure, very, very sure, and have full faith that Krishna is always with us. There's a rationale to the worship of Jagannath as a deity. And Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada in Srimad Bhagavatam, he says a very important point. It is in the third canto, the first chapter, the 17th or 18th verse. I think it's the 17th verse. If you look at the purport there, Srila Prabhupada says something very important. The Lord is transcendental to material senses. He cannot be seen with our present eyes, nor can he be heard with our present ears. But, Prabhupada says in the purport, to the degree that we have entered into service of the Lord, and to the proportion that our lives are freed from sins, then we can perceive Krishna. This is very important. So please remember, sometimes we have the deities at home, and we see them every day. We are passing them. Sometimes we have the good fortune of going to Gauranga Center or a temple, and we see Jagannath there. But we should remember, when we see him, first thing we must remember is Jagannath is always transcendental to our mundane senses. We cannot see him with our eyes, and we cannot hear him with our ears. So, how will we be able to perceive Krishna? When we use the word perceive, when Prabhupada used the word perceive, he's speaking about an experience, something that can be felt when we practice Krishna consciousness. And there are two things that are very important for us so that we will be able to take darshan of Lord Jagannath. The first thing Prabhupada says, to what extent we have entered into service of Krishna, to that extent we can see him. Service means service to Krishna, not service of our mind and our senses. We should be very careful there. Are we performing services for pride, adoration, name, fame? Are we doing all this because we want something from Krishna? No. So to the extent our service is unmotivated and uninterrupted, ahaituki apratihata, to that extent we can perceive Krishna. So that's the first point in the purport. The second point in the purport, to the proportion that our lives are freed from sins, then only we can perceive Krishna. So in other words, the more pure our life becomes, the more pure and the less dirty our lives are. To that extent, we can actually perceive Krishna. But then Prabhupada writes in the purport, even then we are not free from sins. Everyone who's born, they are all having sinful activities. Even if we know it or we don't, we are all committing sins. But Prabhupada writes in the purport, even though we are not free from sins, the Lord is so kind that he allows us the facility to actually see him in the form of Archa Murtis in the temple. These Archa Murtis in the temple are the deities that we see. And this is why Lord Jagannath descended from the spiritual world. Prabhupada says the Lord is all powerful. Therefore, he is able to accept our service by his Archa form. So no one should foolishly think that this beautiful form of the Lord is an idol. This is Prabhupada's point. Such an Archa Murti is not an idol. It is the Lord himself. And to the proportion that we are free of this designation, then we will be able to know the significance of Archa Murti. Very important. And how do we achieve this? Prabhupada writes in the last line of the purport, we achieve this experience of serving Krishna through the guidance of a pure devotee. And that's why Srila Prabhupada established Jagannath worship. Not only, he saw Jagannath worship in Puri, he experienced it as a pure devotee. As a young boy, you must know how he was so He was so absorbed in actually gathering everyone to perform Rath Yatra in his home. But as a pure devotee, he expanded the concept of worship of Jagannath across all four parts of this world. And that is why we are very indebted to Srila Prabhupada, because Srila Prabhupada is that one amazing personality who introduced Jagannath to us. The other thing that we should remember about deity worship, and about Jagannath especially, is that, you know, sometimes when we look at deities, we may think that, oh, we are dressing the deity. Some Alankar is going, some Shringar is going, and we think some ornaments will make the deity look nice. But in this pastime that you will hear, one of the points that will be given is that the Lord Himself is the ornament of all ornaments. And therefore, we should never be distracted when we are dressing the deities to think that we are enhancing the beauty of the Lord. The Lord's beauty is enhancing our service. This is a very important point. There's also a very nice, interesting story that I remember my Guru Maharaj telling me in Dwarka, and I thought it should be shared with us before we plunge into the pastime. There was a person, who was visiting a temple. He was a devotee. And when he went there, the temple was getting some construction. And he saw a sculptor. And the sculptor was actually making an Archa Vigraha of Krishna. Then he saw in the altar that there was a similar Archa Vigraha there. So he looked at the altar and saw the deity, and he saw another deity being made by the sculptor. So then he was surprised, and he asked the sculptor, "My dear man, does this temple need two deities, the same looking deities?" And the sculptor looked up and said, "No, my dear sir, actually we need only one. But the first deity, the deity inside, it got damaged at the last stage of our sculpturing." So the gentleman looked out, he looked and he was examining the deity. And he said, "Well, I don't see any apparent damage. Where is the damage?" And the sculptor said, "There is a scratch, my dear sir, on the nose of the deity." And he was still busy with the work. So the man said, "When are you going to install the deity?" "Oh, very soon." "Where are you going to install the deity?" He said that this deity will be installed in the same altar. And then the man said, "But the altar is 20, 30 feet away. If the deity is so far, I can't see the scratch from here. If you put the new deity there, how will you be able, no one will be able to know. It doesn't matter." And then the sculptor turned to the gentleman. He smiled and he said, "Whether anyone knows it or not, Krishna knows it, my dear sir. He knows there's a scratch. So we must change it." It's a very small episode, but it tells us something very important, that Krishna is alive. He's in the deity. He is the deity. And therefore we must be very careful not to think, that a deity is just an idol. Through these different ideas, they are the symptoms of us realizing that we still have no faith, that the Archa Vigraha is Krishna. Very important. Now, this pastime is a very important part of Vedic history. And it takes place in a time, when there was a great Maharaj, and his name was Indradyumna Maharaj. The scriptures tell us that he was a great devotee of Lord Vishnu, and he was very eager to actually take darshan of the Lord face to face in this world. He had a great deep desire to do that. This is very important. He had great qualities. The scriptures tell us he was deeply religious, he was very noble, he never shirked his duties. So he was a really pious devotee king. And yet, in the last few days, his queen began to realize that he seemed distracted and he seemed anxious. So she went over to his most closest and trusted advisor, and that was, of course, Vidyapati. Indradyumna Maharaj established, his kingdom's capital in the famous city of Avantipur. Avantipur is actually where it's a very famous place. It's the place of learning for Krishna, Avantipur. And so Indradyumna Maharaj established his kingdom there actually. But his kingdom stretched, it was vast. So Vidyapati heard that the king was very restless. He also went to see the general, Yuddhavira. And he asked the general, when was the last time that King Indradyumna Maharaj actually went to inspect the army and the cavalry? And Yuddhavira said, "Oh, actually it's been a long time. And I'm also wondering why. He hasn't inspected the treasury. He wasn't inspecting the horses, the cavalry. I feel that there's something going on in Maharaj's mind. So Vidyapati decided, all right, let me go and see him. So he went to see Indradyumna Maharaj. And Maharaj was sitting down and praying and chanting. And at that point, he asked Maharaj, Maharaj, what is in your mind and why are you so restless? You see? And Indradyumna Maharaj was lamenting. He lamented to Vidyapati, I have wealth, Vidyapati. I have family. I have unrivaled power. I have beauty. I have education. Everything I have. Yet, I'm not satisfied. Why? Because all these worldly affairs that I have, I find them very hollow. I find actually that there is no peace to them and there is no value to it. I find that even though I'm trying to do all these things, but because there is no Krishna in the center, that is why I feel there is no value. Indradyumna Maharaj's feeling of anxiety should not be mistaken for a material hankering. In Bhagavatam, there is a very important Chatushloka. I think it's 2934 Srimad Bhagavatam. Rite ritam yad pratiyeta, na pratiyeta chatmani, tad vidyad atmano mayam, yatha baso yatha tamaha. And Brahma is told by Krishna, O Brahma, whatever that appears to be of any value in this world, but if it has no relation to me, actually it has no reality. So sometimes, we may feel this hankering in our heart or this emptiness. We have everything, we lack nothing. Why are we still anxious? It is because of this point, that somehow or another we have failed to glorify Krishna. Somehow or another we have not increased our quality of devotional service to Krishna. Therefore, we have many things that are valued, but they're all zeros. But Prabhupada said you put a 1 in front of 0, it has value. So then Krishna tells Brahma that you must know then that if something appears to be valuable, but it has no relation to me, actually it has no reality. In fact, it is like my illusory energy. It is like a reflection that appears to be in darkness. So this was what Indradyumna Maharaj was feeling. And so, after speaking to Vidyapati that way, he said, I have a desire. And Vidyapati said, tell me Maharaj, tell me what is your desire. I want you to inquire about how, somehow or another, my desire is to bring the Lord in his supreme form down to this material world. At that point of time, there was no deity form of the Lord like that. And so Vidyapati was thinking, how is it possible? Will it happen? Will it actually happen? So in that way, he began discussing about how. Vidyapati also was thinking, and he said, my Lord, let us go to the assembly hall and let us broadcast what you want as your desire to bring the Lord to this world. So they went to the assembly house, and there he broadcast the message that if anyone had seen the form of the Lord descended into this world, please come and tell Indradyumna Maharaj. And one day, one young Brahmana came to the court of Avantipur. When he came in, he said that my dear king, I have good news for you. What is the good news? I was a pilgrim and I was traveling around this place known as the Niladri Hills. And there in the Niladri Hills, I bring you good news that I took darshan of the most beautiful deity form of the Lord. Indradyumna Maharaj was so ecstatic. So was Vidyapati. So they asked him, where is this? And he said, there is a beautiful place known as Purushottam Kshetra. And in that Purushottam Kshetra, there is a beautiful set of hills known as Niladri Hills. In the center of the hills, there's an enormous banyan tree. And right near that banyan tree lies a beautiful lake known as Rohini Kunda. And that lake is so beautiful. Just touching that lake's water makes us all feel relieved from fatigue. And right where Rohini Kunda is, and between Rohini Kunda and Niladri Hills, there is the beautiful form of the Lord. And I came to know, my dear Indradyumna Maharaj, that the Lord has a name. He is beautiful and bluish in color, and is known as Neelakantamani. And he is also known as Neelamadhav. I stayed there for 1 year, O king, and the influence of the place was just amazing. It was completely transcendent. Indradyumna Maharaj was so excited, so inspired. He said, Krishna is so kind. Just like that, he heard me. See, this is the beauty of devotees like Indradyumna Maharaj. They may appear to be plunged. They may appear to be plunged in material world, As kings, they had so many things to do. They had to take care of the gold, taxation. They had so many things to do. They were not full-time devotees, but they followed the principle of Bhagavad Gita that Krishna told Arjuna in 8:7. Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mamanusmara yudhya cha mai arpita mano buddhir mame vaishi asamsayaha. So this is very important. Krishna tells Arjuna, Arjuna, you should always think of me. This is the first step to receiving the Lord into our hearts. Our minds, they can either be the best of friends or the worst of enemies. So use our mind to think of Krishna. That's why he says, think of me. How? In the form of Krishna. But at the same time, you carry out your prescribed duty of fighting. But you dedicate your activities to me and use your mind and intelligence and fix them on me. And if you do that, mam evaishasi asamsayaha. Asamsayaha means beyond a doubt. That's the word-to-word transliteration. Beyond a doubt. So Indradyumna Maharaj did not just overnight become a great devotee. Please remember that. For years and years and years, as he continued his devotional service, side by side he took care of the kingdom, but side by side he continued his devotional service. The fruit of that devotional service is manifested in his desire to see Krishna and bring Krishna to this world. And that is why, because he had such a strong desire and communicated it to another devotee, Vidyapati, and when they discussed it, their determination to have Jagannath come to this world begin to bear fruit. And this whole entire episode of Snan Yatra, yes, it is about Jagannath coming to this world, but Jagannath came to this world on the strength of the determination and devotion of one great king. If you have time, Prabhu's Matajis, you should read 728 of Bhagavad Gita, because there, Krishna mentions this very important point of determination. Yesham tvantagatam papam jananam punya karmanam twadvandva moha nirmukta bhajanti mam drida vrataha. Bhajanti mam drida vrataha. This drida vrataha is a vow which is based on determination. So persons who have acted very piously in previous lives, even in this life, what happens to them? Whatever sinful actions that they have or reactions that they have, they're completely eradicated. They become free from the dualities of delusion, thinking that they are part of this world. Indradyumna Maharaj never dived into that duality. Why? Because from day one when he became a king, he engaged in the service of the Lord with determination. So this is the way to grow our determination for Krishna. And that's why the pilgrim came. It was Krishna's plan that when the Lord realized the desire of his pure devotee, the Lord sent the pilgrim. And the pilgrim spoke about this beautiful place. So what did Indradyumna Maharaj do now? He said, Vidyapati, I want you and all the other generals, you must go out and find this Purushottam Kshetra. I know it is in a very deep and dark place of Niladri hills, not known so well to people. It must be in the far stretches of my kingdom. But all of you spread out and go. And everybody went out. So did Vidyapati. Vidyapati traveled and traveled. And according to the pastime, he traveled for months and months and months. He missed, going back to Avantipur. But every time he lost hope and thought he should go back, he remembered the determination of Indradyumna Maharaj. And on that platform of determination, he also remembered how wonderful it would be to bring the Lord. And so he prayed very hard to Krishna, please find me a way to find you, Krishna. This is the mood of a devotee. A devotee never thinks that on my capacity I can find you. Just like in Bhagavatam, it is stated actually that the super soul wakes us up every morning, not us. And if the super soul doesn't wake us up on that morning, we will not wake up. We are dead. So even if we want to wake up the deities in the morning for Mangala Arati, our prayer in the night should be that, my dear Jagannath, please I pray to you that in the morning you, please with your mercy, wake me up so that I can then wake you up. This is the mood of Krishna. When we were young, what did we used to do? If we had our parents' birthdays, we want to buy them a present, right? So very often we'd buy them present actually from the money they gave us. They knew it. They knew that we had no capacity to earn. But when we bought them the little present and gave it to them, They discounted the fact that it was coming from their money, but they loved the fact that we were determined to give them something. That's what Indradyumna Maharaj did. And that's what Vidyapati also wanted to do. So he traveled deep into the forests. And one day, when he was really, really thirsty, he came across a well. And suddenly he heard voices of ladies. And when he was almost about to faint, one very young lady known as Lalita, she took some water and gave it to him. And when he came to, she invited him to the village. This village was known as the Shabara village. And in that Shabara village was the headman. His name was Vishwavasu. Vishwavasu's daughter was Lalita. And Vishwavasu was a very kind-hearted man, though he was a bit gruff because, he was from the hills. And therefore he was a bit stern. But he saw that this gentleman, Vidyapati, was of noble character. And so he allowed his daughter and the village to take care of him. After a while, Vidyapati recovered, from his swooning and his fatigue. And through the months, he began to recover. But that as he began to recover, he won the confidence of Vishwavasu. And he won the love of Lalita. And so with the blessings of Vishwavasu, Vidyapati and Lalita got married. And so he stayed on a bit longer. Now we may think that Vidyapati forgot the purpose for which he came. He was very tired and his health was not good. But never did he lose his determination to somehow or another come out of this situation, move on, gain his strength, and find this wonderful form of Jagannath. And because his Dhrida Vrataha was still strong, and because he was chanting and praying to Krishna to somehow be able to find, Krishna again helped him. Because every day, Vidyapati realized something interesting and unusual. What did he realize? He realized that actually Vishwavasu would leave very early in the morning to the forest. And there, he would go there with a lot of items like flowers and fruits and everything. And he would always go clockwork. When he came back, instead of being full of perspiration as you would in the jungle, he came back smelling of sandalwood and musk and chandan, and incense. And so Vidyapati was thinking, something must be there. Where is he going and what is he doing? So he asked Lalita, my dear wife, tell me where your father goes. Lalita said, no, it's a secret. I can't tell you. Vidyapati said, I'm your husband. Surely you can tell your husband everything. Lalita was torn, between the father and the husband. And he said, all right. She said, all right, I'll tell you. My father goes every morning to worship the form of the Lord, very special form of the Lord. At that point, if you read the scriptures, and if you read that wonderful play on this pastime of Jagannath by His Holiness Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj, who introduced this entire pastime to all of us in the world of Srila Prabhupada's ISKCON, you will find that at that point, Vidyapati's heart skipped a beat. He thought, wait a minute, is this what Krishna is revealing to me? And he said, go on, Lalita, tell me, what else? And she said, my father goes there because there's a beautiful form of the Lord. And he worships that form so wonderfully. And that's why when he comes back after all his offerings, he's smelling divine because he has had transcendental association with the Lord. Vidyapati thanked Krishna in the heart and said, Lalita, thank you very much. Of course, he thanked his wife. And he said, somehow or another, I must go with your father. She said, if I tell him, he will really be angry with me. Somehow he persuaded her. And one day, Lalita told Vishwavasu what she had told Vidyapati. Vishwavasu initially was very upset. But he had a soft spot for Lalita, his daughter, like all fathers do for their daughters. And so he said, all right, since you have told me this, call Vidyapati. So he said, Vidyapati, you can come with me. But if you want to go and see this beautiful form of the Lord, you have to do one thing. I'll have to blindfold you. First, Vidyapati hesitated. He thought, oh no, this is not the way I want to see Krishna. But he thought, something is better than nothing. So he knew he could not find the way there if he came back. So he went home and he got mustard seeds. And he kept mustard seeds in a pouch on the side of his dhoti. And he thought, as I walk, I will drop the mustard seeds. So that even if I can't see, by the time I come back, they would grow. Because rainy season had just come. So Vidyapati and Vishwavasu set out early in the morning and they left. And as they walked through the forest, Vidyapati heard beautiful sounds. He heard the bumblebees humming. When he turned to his father-in-law and said, I hear bumblebees humming, Vishwavasu said, no, actually what you're hearing are the devotees who have come to see the Lord. They are murmuring. Vidyapati then heard forest birds and they were cooing away. And then Vishwavasu said, no, they are not. They are the choruses of the celestials who have come to worship the Lord. Vidyapati then felt fragrant breezes and he felt drops, of something falling from the sky. And he said, Father-in-law, this is very auspicious. Rain is coming. Vishwavasu said, it's not rain. These are bits of flowers coming far, far away from the celestial world because the celestials are pouring flowers on the Lord. Then he heard, sounds of elephants in the forest. And at that point of time, Vishwavasu said, no, they are all the devatas who are now coming to take darshan of the Lord. And true enough, by the time they came to the clearing, he saw the Rohini Kund lake. He saw the beautiful banyan tree and he saw a beautiful altar. And there he saw all the devatas and they had all come. And Vishwavasu said, quiet, we must hide behind, we cannot be seen. And from there, he saw a beautiful sight. He saw Brahmaji, he saw Indra and all the devatas. They had brought fruits, flowers, incense. And Brahma was doing arati and singing arati for the Lord. They were playing kettle drums and cymbals, kirtan. And they were all chanting Purusha Shukta prayers. It was so beautiful. It was so transcendental that for that moment, Vidyapati was just completely entranced. Then the devatas brought beautiful garlands, beautiful Vaijayanti Mala garlands from the spiritual world, and they put it on the form of the Lord. And the form of the Lord was so beautiful from where he could see that they just waited. And as they waited, finally the devatas finished and they all went. Then Vishwavasu came out. And when Vishwavasu came out, he was so excited. What did he do? The moment he came out, he brought his son-in-law and then he fell at the lotus feet of the beautiful form of Nilmadhav. The form of Nilmadhav was exquisite, the scriptures tell us. And Vidyapati was completely tongue-tied. He was completely tongue-tied. He didn't know what to say, actually. But Vishwavasu was very, very, very at ease with the Lord. He started clearing everything that the devatas had given. He cleared everything. He took out the garland, everything. As he was speaking, as he was doing that, he was speaking to Krishna. He was saying, my dear Nilmadhav, are you well today? How was your night? Then he cursed, Vishwavasu cursed. He said, I really cursed the sun, Surya, that you made. Why? Because the sun took so long to set yesterday. And I cursed the night because the night took so long to come to the morning. And therefore I had to wait and wait to see you. And therefore I am so happy to see you again, my Lord. And then Vidyapati, Vishwavasu turned and said, oh my dear Nilmadhav, I forgot. I must introduce you to my son-in-law, Vidyapati. He has come all the way from a faraway land and he wants to take darshan of you. Please be kind. I'll leave him with you. He turned to his son-in-law and said, I'm going to go and collect flowers and fruits. You be with the Lord for a while. Is that all right? Vidyapati said, of course it's all right. And so he sat down and he meditated and took beautiful darshan of the Lord. As he did that, he turned to the Rohini Kund lake, and he saw an amazing sight. He saw a crow swim. The crow was flying past the lake, right? As it was flying past the lake, the lake was so pure that at the moment as the crow passed the lake, the time for it to expire was then. And it fell into the lake. The moment the crow touched the lake, what happened to the crow? It assumed the form of the four-handed Vaikuntha inhabitants right in front of the eyes of Vidyapati. And it went up to Vaikuntha immediately. I'm remembering a similar pastime of how Kalia came to Yamuna river and the opposite was there. He poisoned Yamuna river so much, Krishna book tells us, that if a crow passed by, the crow died, but it died because of the poison. Here the crow went into the water, left its life, but it became a four-handed inhabitant of Vaikuntha. When Vidyapati saw that, what do you think he felt? He thought, what am I waiting for? I should just jump into the lake. What is the point of this life? The whole goal of life is to render devotional service to Krishna, to go back to Godhead. He was about to jump when Nilmadhav spoke very loudly and deeply like a rumbling of the thunder. And he said, Vidyapati, please do not do that. Your time is not now. Do not forget your promise to that great saintly king Indradyumna Maharaj. You must go back and you must bring the king here. And that's what he said. And now Vishwavasu came back, and Vidyapati was very silent. He was meditating. So Vishwavasu said, My dear Lord, I have brought you all these flowers. Please accept it. And to his surprise, Nilamadhav spoke to both of them. Nilamadhav said, Vishwavasu, my dear friend, you have served me with so much love so long. I'm eternally indebted to your service. Your service has given me so many hours of transcendental bliss. But now I am going to go into another phase of my pastime. I decree now that this world will no longer see this form. And I decree that a new form of mine must come into this world. And in that form of mine will become the Lord of the universe. And I want to be worshipped by the great saintly king Indradyumna Maharaj. And I want him, my dear Vishwavasu, to establish an elaborate and great worship such that I will be worshipped throughout the universe. When Vishwavasu heard this, he was completely devastated. Completely devastated. He felt rejected. And he turned to Vidyapati and said, When I was gone, what did you tell the Lord? You must have put something into him. You must have influenced him. This is, of course, loving exchange between devotee and the Lord. But we know the Lord cannot be influenced unless he wants to be influenced. So what did he do? He said, You are not going to go back to see King Indradyumna. So he imprisoned, tied up, he bundled up Vidyapati, and he kept him a prisoner in the village. Vidyapati was caught, and he was praying to Krishna, How am I going to be free? And one night Lalita came and freed him. And he said, My dear wife, I thank you so much, but I must go now because the Lord wants to be worshipped throughout the world. I will go and bring King Indradyumna here. In 2 moons, in 2 full moons, I will come back for you too. Lalita felt very bad, but she loved her husband, and she said, Go and do what you were supposed to do. And so Vidyapati goes back, he meets Indradyumna Maharaj, and he tells him, Maharaj, we have found Nilamadhav. By his mercy, he is now coming. Indradyumna Maharaj now prepares a whole reception, and with Yuddhavira, his queen, Vidyapati, they all leave for the Shabra hills. Yuddhavira is a general, so he was actually more cautious. He said, My dear King Indradyumna, Vishwavasu won't give up easily, but I have everything ready. Indradyumna Maharaj said, No, he's my friend. He's a great devotee. Let us go and see him. And so they enter the village. But the village has a gloom about it which was not present before. Vidyapati looked around and found no one was there. So he went into the house of Lalita and he saw Vishwavasu looking very despondent, very down. Indradyumna Maharaj came in. Vishwavasu did not even stand up to see him. In fact, he was just speaking to himself. And in his speech, he was saying, My dear Lord, how much I remember my intimate service with you. In fact, Vishwavasu was feeling great separation from Krishna. That was what was happening at that time. But Vidyapati kept asking Vishwavasu, Where is Nilamadhav? Why do you speak this way? And at that point of time, Vishwavasu said, You have stolen Nilamadhav. Vidyapati said, I just came. Vishwavasu became angry. He's not here. He has left. And at that point of time, Indradyumna Maharaj became completely devastated. How can it be? It cannot be. He thought that Vishwavasu was lying. But now Vidyapati remembered what he had done. What did he do? He had the mustard seeds. If you read, the play that Tamal Krishna Maharaj expertly wrote on this, Jagannath Priya Natakam, that is the name of the play. He wrote it in beautiful poetic, he wrote in so much poetry. This part he wrote very nicely, I remember. The way unknown, seeds secretly grown. After 2 months grown, Nilamadhav shone. Very beautiful, huh? The way unknown, seeds secretly grown. After 2 months gone, Nilamadhav shone. And that's what Vidyapati did. He said, "Never mind, Vishwavasu. Let's go now." So the king, Yuddhavira, all the soldiers, and Vidyapati, they went into the Niladri hills. But as he went in there, instead of hearing all those auspicious cuckoos and forest breeze and fragrance, he found things had changed. There was a howling wind. There were the sounds of jackals shrieking. There were birds and asses. They were all braying. He went right up to the sanctum, right next to the banyan tree, opened the doors widely, and there was no Nilamata. No Nilamata. At that point of time, Indradyumna Maharaj just fainted. It was too much for him. The pain of not seeing Krishna was too much for him. They went back to Vishwavasu, and Indradyumna Maharaj was very angry. He imprisoned Vishwavasu, and he said that you have hidden Nilamata. And Vishwavasu said, "My dear king, you may have money, you may have wealth, but you cannot buy Krishna." It's a very nice point. This village has nothing to offer you because the Lord has decided to leave. But Indradyumna said, "You have kidnapped the Lord." Vishwavasu said, "It is because of you that the Lord has decided to leave." And so the devotees had a bit of tension at that point of time. And Narada Muni came. Narada Muni always comes at the right time, And at that point of time when he came, he said, "My dear king, Indradyumna and Vishwavasu, Vidyapati, listen, I bring greetings from the Lord from the spiritual world. The Lord has declared that he will no longer be seen in this world as Nilamata. But I instruct you now that he wants you, O king, to build the greatest temple ever built. And in that structure, you will invite the Lord to come in the form as the Lord of the universe, and he will come as Jagannath. So don't waste time now. Build a great temple at Purushottam Kshetra on the shores, and the Lord will be pleased." At that point of time, Vishwavasu was saying, let me be of service. This was his mood. He embraced Indradyumna Maharaj, and Indradyumna Maharaj embraced him. And they both sought forgiveness from each other. And they said that we're very sorry for finding fault with each other. But the aim was to glorify Krishna. So Indradyumna Maharaj said, "I have the capacity to build, but Vishwavasu, I'll put you now as the chief engineer." And Vishwavasu became very happy. He said, "I will come with you gladly, and let us engage in this extraordinary pastime of bringing Krishna here." So you see, even when devotees may have some difficulty, some adjustments, sometimes we may find fault with each other because of the material modes of nature. But rite ritam ya pratiyeta, if we put Krishna in the center, if we know Krishna is the value, then we must learn to tolerate each other's misgivings. We must learn to stop criticizing each other. And both Indradyumna Maharaj and Vishwavasu showed remorse. They both apologized. They embraced each other. They made up. And both of them became determined. Dhridavrataha. Vidyapati also became very, very happy. He said, "My dear king, let me now become the chief Brahmana in charge of getting all the sacrifices ready. Because you will need to invite Jagannath himself, isn't it, to come? Because he's going to come. We have heard now. Now you need to go and invite all the chief guests." And Indradyumna Maharaj said, "Yes, you start the fire, Vidyapati, and get everything ready. Vishwavasu, we will build the temple, and then Vidyapati can start doing it." And so they started building. And as the temple was being built, it was a beautiful temple. It was a beautiful temple. And at that point of time, Indradyumna Maharaj decided, "Let me go and get chief guest of honor." Who? Brahmaji. At that time, the king was so pious, he could actually go all the way to Satyaloka. Today, just to take an MRT to go somewhere is already difficult for us. But because easy journey to other planets, if you remember Prabhupada, a yogi or a great devotee can easily cross over all these difficult barriers of this material universe. And Indradyumna Maharaj went to Satyaloka. And when he went there, Brahmaji was a bit busy with creative aspects, and he was a busy man generally. So Indradyumna Maharaj waited. He thought, never mind, half an hour maybe, 1 hour, it's okay. But he forgot one thing. Time in Brahma's world is very different from time in our world. So Indradyumna Maharaj thought that it was a very short time. And Brahmaji actually took a short time. 1 hour or so he finished. And he came to see Indradyumna. And Indradyumna Maharaj begged him to be the guest of honor. And Brahmaji said, "It would be my pleasure. My pleasure." He was very happy. And so Indradyumna Maharaj came back to this world. Now, when he came back to this world, he walked into his kingdom and he thought, wait a minute, the kingdom looks very different. He walked right up to where the temple was to be. And he saw the temple, but the temple looked like it was in a bit of a ruin. There was a lot of sand around it. And he was wondering why. He looked at the people walking in and out of the temple and couldn't really know anyone. He couldn't recognize anyone. So he was thinking, hey, who are all these people? So he went to a fire space, the same place where the fire sacrifice was going on. And then he asked, where's Vidyapati? Because he saw a Brahmana seated there. And he said, where's Vidyapati? First he thought that Brahmana was Vidyapati. When he looked at him, he said, no, my name is not Vidyapati. I am Vishnu Sharma. And he asked, is there a Vidyapati here? He said, the Vidyapati you speak about has been dead for ages and ages and ages. And now Indradyumna Maharaj became very, very scared. Fear gripped his heart. What is the meaning of this, Krishna? I went all the way to bring Brahmaji. We were doing devotional service for you. We were eagerly waiting to receive you. I just came back. And now this man says that Vidyapati is dead. So then he asked him, who is the king here? And he said, the king is Galamadhav. And before that it was Suradeva. Then he said, no, I am the king. And Vishnu Sharma said, let me call the king. And so Galamadhav came. And Galamadhav said, who is this impostor who's claiming to be king? And Indradyumna Maharaj says, can you not recognize me? I am the king Indradyumna. Galamadhav said, Indradyumna, he has become legend. We heard that there was a king Indradyumna who wanted to build the temple. And he built a temple for the Lord. But he just went away and he never came back. So now Indradyumna's heart became very, very, very heavy. He said, but I am Indradyumna. And there was a Vidyapati. There was a Vishwavasu. There was my general. There was my wife. Where are they? And for a while, Galamadhav said, I think I need to imprison you. And just when they were going to put the cups on Indradyumna Maharaj, there was a crow, that was seated on the tree. It was the kind of species known as Bhushandi crow. These crows, the Shastras tell us, they live very old. They live for a long, long time. And so at that point of time, the crow, Bhushandi, it stopped Galamadhav and said, Galamadhav, I have news for you. I confirm that this personality is indeed King Indradyumna. He is. He is. And he is the exalted king who went to bring Brahmaji to come back. But he forgot the time of Brahma is different from us. And now Indradyumna Maharaj said, my dear Bhushandi, tell me what became of all my friends. And Bhushandi said, they're all dead. Vidyapati waited and kept the fire going for you, my lord. And while he was waiting, he fueled the fire. He never lost faith that you will come. But while fueling the fire, he left the world. Then he said, what happened to Vishwavasu, my dear friend? Vishwavasu got everything ready. He built this temple so beautifully. He waited. And then he became so full of separation from the Lord that he walked into the forest. And in a forest fire, he got burnt. Then he said, what about Yuddhavira, my general? He fought very hard defending the kingdom when you didn't come back. But he died. Your wife, your relatives, everyone have left. Indradyumna Maharaj became devastated. And he just decided, what is the point of living? Better I just die. And at that point of time, he thought, that why should I live? And in that way, he went to sleep. And in that night, the Lord appeared in his dream. And Krishna told him that the time has come now. I was testing your determination, and the time for me to come is now. Go to the shores of Purushottam Kshetra, and there I will come floating in from the sea, but in a wooden form. I will be known as Daru Brahman, and I will finally stop at a place called Banki Mohan. I will stop there. And there you must take me in, and you must bring me inside. Bring my previous servant Vishwavasu, who used to serve me as Neelamadhav. Build a golden chariot for me, because once I am installed, I will then move around the world. The king became very, very happy, but he thought there's no Vishwavasu anymore. And so he prayed and prayed and waited. And in a few days, he received news that a huge log known as Daru Brahman had indeed stopped at the shores of Banki Mohan at Purushottam Kshetra. They tried to bring the log into the land. Elephants, cavalry, nothing moved. Nothing moved. And then suddenly Indradyumna Maharaj heard word that the log had moved. He said, who could move it? And his general said, one man came from the hills, from the Shabara village. And he said that he is the chief of the Shabaras. And he said he is a descendant of the chief who used to worship Jagannath, the Lord. And he said, I have come now to move the Lord. And true enough, when he put his body to the wood, the Lord actually moved. And so Indradyumna came down to see this personality. And when he saw him, he thought he was Vishwavasu. He said, Vishwavasu, my friend, welcome back. How did you come back? And the gentleman said, I'm not Vishwavasu. My name is actually Veerabhadra. But Vishwavasu was my ancestor. And I received a dream that I should come and serve my king, because we must serve the Lord together. And so they brought this log of wood to the place known as Gundicha. And there, again the Lord appeared in the king Indradyumna Maharaj's dream and gave him directions that now that I have come, I can only be carved by Vishwakarma himself. So you may call any architect you want, but no sculptor will be able to do it. And true enough, when some sculptors tried to touch the wooden form of the Lord, the Shastras tell us the chisels broke and they fell into pieces. So finally, one very old man came and he said, my name is Ananta Maharana and I've been sent by the Lord to make this. But I will do it under one condition. I will work behind closed doors and I will work for 21 days. Oh, sorry, that's two conditions. And during that time, my king, you must never disturb me. Never, never disturb me. If you promise that you will not disturb me, then I will complete it. Of course, the king agreed. And so Ananta Maharana started his work. 14 days after he started his work, there was no sound inside. Now the king started thinking, why there's no sound? Has he starved to death? I kept enough food for him. What has happened? The king consulted, Vishnu Sharma. He consulted Veerabhadra. And everyone told him, do not open the door and don't break your promise. But Indradyumna Maharaj was full of anxiety and he felt that something would have happened. And so, against better judgment, he opened the door after 14 days because he could not hear the sound and he became full of anxiety. When he opened the door, an amazing sight received him. He did not find the old sculptor anywhere, but instead he saw the form of the deity, the wooden Daru Brahman form, but now it had become manifested in 3 beautiful deities. But when he looked closer, he became very disheartened. The deities were not painted. And he also saw that the fingers and the toes of the deities were not finished. At that point of time, Vishnu Sharma turned to him and told him, my dear king, you have broken your promise. And Indradyumna thought, the form of the Lord was not finished. What a great offender I am. And therefore Indradyumna Maharaj decided, I will sit on a bed of kusha grass and fast to death. Half the night passed that way, and Jagannath appeared to the king in his dream. And this is what he said, my dear king, I am eternally situated here in Nilachal, where you are. I'm always here. But now I'm going to come in the form of Jagannath. When I descend into this material world, you have the good fortune of receiving me. Why is it that I have no hands and feet? Because I want to display and prove to the world that I am beyond matter. The Lord does not need material hands and feet, but with my transcendental senses, I will accept all items offered in service to my devotees and by my devotees. And even though I may appear to have no toes and no feet, I will show to the world that I will travel everywhere in my golden chariot and show them and give them darshan. And let it never be said that the Lord, the Supreme Lord, does not have transcendental senses. This is a very, very important point. In the I think it is Shweta Upanishad, it is very nicely stated. Apanipado javano grahita pashyatya chakshu sashinotya karna savetti vadyam savetti vedyam nachatashyati veta tam ahuragyam purusham mahantam. The translation is very nice. Without legs and hands, he moves and accepts. This is what is stated in the Upanishads. Without eyes, he sees, and without ears, he hears. He knows all that is knowable, but no one knows him. He is the original Supreme Person. Therefore, Jagannath did not come in this form in an accident. Jagannath came in this form to show us that material hands and legs are not the constraints on the Lord. The Lord today continues to accept 56 different types of offerings, Chapan Bhog, and is offered 8 times daily. The Lord today tours Jagannath Puri. When he comes out, millions come to see him. And by Srila Prabhupada's mercy, when he comes out today, millions in all the parts of the world can take darshan because of the splendid way the Lord, Baladev and Subhadra Mai, they give us this wonderful darshan. So when Jagannath heard this wonderful point of the Lord in his dream, he became very satisfied. And he prayed to Krishna, "My dear Lord Jagannath, grant me this desire, that those who have appeared in the family of Vishwavasu, let them always be given the benediction of continuing what he has done." See, Krishna was so kind. Krishna asked him, "Whatever you want, my dear king, you with your determination have brought me here." Think of it, Prabhus and Matajis. How much did Indradyumna Maharaj sacrifice? His whole world changed because he waited in Brahmaloka. He was willing to do anything and everything to bring Krishna. He could easily have lost faith in Krishna. "Oh, I've lost my loved ones and everyone. Why, Lord, did you put me through all this?" But he didn't do that. Why? Because of Dhridavrataha and because of his pure devotion to the Lord. A devotee of the Lord always accepts what Lord gives him, even if it looks like a trial and tribulation, but he sees that as his fault. Tatenu kampam sushamichnamani bunjana evatma kritam vipakam rivag vapurvi vidadan namaste. With his heart, with everything, with his mind, with his speech, what does he do? He increases his devotion service. So that's why when Jagannath asked him, "Ask for anything you want, I will give it to you." This is the beauty of Indradyumna Maharaj. He did not ask for wealth and name and fame. No, he didn't ask anything for himself. He remembered all the devotees who served. This is the mood that Srila Prabhupada wanted in our family of devotees. We think less of ourselves and we think more of others, how to serve them. So he said that this is my first request from you, my Lord, that the descendants of Vishwavasu who served you as Nila Madhav, generation after generation, I pray that they will serve you. And Jagannath said, yes, they will be known as my Dayitas. And till today, they serve Jagannath. Then Indradyumna Maharaj said, please also allow the descendants of Vidyapati to continue all the service to you. And Jagannath said, those who have been born from Vidyapati, they will continue to worship me. Vidyapati had 2 wives. He had a Brahmana wife, and then later he had Lalita. From the Brahmana wives, Jagannath said that all of them can continue deity worship for me. And from the Shabras, Lalita, he said that all her descendants, they should cook my food. And today, those who cook their food, they are descendants of Lalita. And they are known as the Suyaras. And then Indradyumna Maharaj turned to Lord Jagannath and said, I have one more favor to ask, my Lord. Let the doors of your temple be closed only for 3 hours. I know you have to sleep a little less, but keep it open. Let it be open so that all the residents of the universes may always have access to see you. And always allow that for the day long, there's always prasad distribution, and that your lotus fingers may never be dry and always be touched by prasad. See, Jagannath appeared as if he was incomplete, but he wanted the sweetness of the pastime of the devotee breaking his promise and the Lord fulfilling his vow. How wonderful is that? And finally, he asked for one last thing because Jagannath turned to him and said, "You haven't asked anything from me. What do you want?" And this is the great Drida Vrataha that Indradyumna Maharaj asked. He said, "In the future, I wish no one to claim this temple. This temple is open to everyone. So, to do that, I desire that I will never have descendants. I desire that this temple will always be gifted to everyone. Please grant me that benediction, my Lord." And Krishna, as Jagannath, became so pleased and so happy that he gave him that. And thus ends this wonderful pastime of Jagannath. And so, the deities inside the room of Ananta Maharana, the deities were brought out, and then they were all painted and prepared. Brahmaji officiated the ceremony. There was a beautiful Abhishek of Jagannath, Baladev, and Subhadra that you just saw from the house of Chandrasekhar Acharya Prabhu, Subhadana Mataji, and Gopala Prabhu. And in that beautiful darshan, that is how the great and wonderful Jagannath came into this world. So we are very, very fortunate that today we have the chance to take darshan of their lordships. We may not be in Goranga Center, but we remember the deities because they are non-different from the deities in Puri. We want to thank Chandrasekhar Prabhu, Subhanana Mataji, and Gopalak Prabhu. There we are. We're taking beautiful darshan. Look at them. We thank them so much for giving us wonderful darshan of their beautiful deities. Their deity of Radha Krishna known as Radha Gopal Ju. And then you have the darshan of Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadramai ki. And we see Sri Sri Gaurnitai, and we see Srila Prabhupada and Guru Parampara. We thank them for being so open-hearted and generous. The Abhishek they did has the same value and potency as the Abhishek that was first done to receive Jagannath. So please take this message that the Lord and His form in this world are non-different. They are non-different. It is Krishna. And Jagannath is the most merciful form. Let us today pray to Him very hard that whatever we have done in devotional service, we should increase the quality. Let us pray and understand that life is very short and that time is very, very, very fragile. Indradyumna Maharaj used his time for Krishna and Jagannath. And that's why when time ravaged him, he never felt it. When time comes to ravage us, if we are with devotional service, then time cannot change our consciousness for Krishna. Jai Jagannath Baladev Subhadra. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Jai Srila Gurudev. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda ki. Now please continue to take darshan of the deities. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to get off, prepare myself for the kirtan, and we'll do 15 minutes of kirtan to end off today's program. Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki. So, Hare Krishna and welcome back. And now we're taking darshan of the deities. Let's sing for a few minutes and chant the holy names of the Lord. Thank you all for joining us today. And please, we hope to see you for all the programs. There'll be many more festivals. And please continue to be enthused in the chanting of the holy names. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Jai Jagannath, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Go, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Jai Radha Gopal Ji ki, Jai Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Bol. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Shri Shri Radha Gopal Ji ki, Jai Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Mai ki, Jai Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki, Jai Shri Nrsimha Bhagavan ki. Jai Shri Shri Guru Parampara ki. Jai Shri La Prabhupada ki. Jai Shri La Gurudev ki. Ananta Kuri Vaishnavinda ki. Jai Shri Shri Jagannath Snan Yatra ki. Nitai Gaura Premanand. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Shri Guru. So thank you very much for joining us today for the session. We wanted to make sure that we'll keep to our time, and we have. We want to thank their Lordship Sri Sri Jagannath, Baladev and Subhadra. We want to thank Sansekaracharya Prabhu, Subhananda Mataji, Gopala Krishna Prabhu. They have given us such an exquisite darshan today. We want to thank the devotees, who always work so hard to stream us, and those who are at the back end, Vishal Prabhu, Ravi Sharma Prabhu. Thank you so much for doing this. Raghunandan Prabhu, our festival IC, for always organizing festivals, whichever way, whether it's online or physical. We know that COVID situation is there, and sometimes being online may be a challenge or may not be, but it has advantages, and we should be determined. Dridhavrataha. We should not give up our devotional service, nor should we lose fire of devotional service, just because we may not physically be able to be attending the program. Krishna is so kind that somehow or another we can use anything in his favor. So use your laptops, use your devices, but come on board and keep hearing about Krishna. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada, Srila Gurudev ki.